It is Monday, November 11th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very early get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. You can probably tell in my voice that I'm not as stressed as I normally am at this time. It's because the time that I had somebody on top of me trying to wrench my arm or something was like, I don't know, about 18 hours ago. Not quite that many, but a while ago. About 13 hours ago. My apologies. But anyway, so yeah, we did some interesting stuff this morning. I communicated to my training partner that I was having a little bit of issue. And as a matter of fact, this is a continuing issue for me. It's been something that I've been trying to work through for quite a while, and I think it'll probably still be an issue for me a little while later from now, you know. But it's that I like to close the gap between me and my opponent, you know. So I like to get in really close and clinch. And the problem that I keep having is deciding what kind of takedown to resort to from the position, and like things like grips to establish beforehand, you know. And so we covered some takedowns, and mostly we covered like a valley drop, and I was doing kind of a variation on it, and he communicated to me that if I were to do that on my training partner's, chances are I might actually injure them, and so it's not a good way to go about it. But anyway, he did walk me through the proper way, you know, to avoid unnecessary injury, because we don't want to really hurt anybody, right? I mean, unless of course it's a self-defense situation, and then, you know, kind of want to get that over and done with really quick, you know. But anyway, so as far as what we were doing like a valley drop situation, and I was really flowing with that. I mean, it seemed really natural to me, you know, as opposed to trying to go in for a like a single leg or something like that from there. Although we did cover one thing, and I thought it was really interesting, because it's kind of particular to a certain type of player that both he and I know very, very well, and you know, and there's a couple players where they've got this kind of a default entry to things, and it's like, okay, how do I address that? Oh, well, you know, if I grip the elbow and, you know, I pull it a certain way, and I'm not going to go ahead and give it all out here on the chance that person is actually listening. It could happen. You never know, right? So anyway, it was cool. We did a single leg setup and also a valley drop setup, and I really liked both. It's kind of one where you turn away from your opponent. You know, you grab the forearm and you turn away from your opponent. And then, you know, my thing was I kept wanting to break that, but, you know, if you do this particular position, you want to, like, kind of keep your chest forward and your hip really, really tight to theirs, and then you just grip it on the other side, you know, on the other hip, and you just pull down, and the person goes down. That's pretty much it. So anyway, we did that, but more importantly, we worked on a series of movements that, I mean, for me, it was probably the most cohesive set of movements that we've done. I mean, or at least that I was able to pay attention or notice. You know, I mean, we do progressions and whatnot, but this was the one. This one, for whatever reason, it really stuck with me, and it was from two positions. We were working a side control, and we were also working from a half guard. And so if you're in half guard on the top, right, first thing you want to do is get out of that leg situation, right? Well, this one, it was really interesting because you reach all the way through with your left hand, like under their I want to see, left left armpit, and then down the side, and just like force your back up towards their head. Really, really cool movement. I've done it quite a bit, but every once in a while I fall out of vogue with it. It's like I need to be reminded of how powerful I am on that particular set of movements. But anyway, we managed to work it all the way from a half guard position, a top half guard position, to a what do you call it? A 180 arm bar. And I normally have trouble with the 180 arm bar, but we did some adjustments on the entry for it, and my teammate, he showed me this thing with sliding the knee up over the shoulder, and I was just like, oh my god, that's so awesome. Because normally you want to step all the way over and then turn it in, right? Well, the way we were doing it keeps like full on pressure on the upper body, right? And whether or not I'll ever be able to do it on another person, I don't know. But I'm gonna be trying to find out. I'll tell you what, because it seemed like a really clutch move. And like I said, I kept really good pressure. I felt really comfortable keeping pressure on him. I didn't feel like it was an extraordinary amount of effort. And that's really what you want to go for, or what I want to go for in my jiu-jitsu, is efficiency of movement. That's why I'm always grabbing for the nearest thing. It's like, it's not necessarily where I'm going to end up, but it's going to give me an entryway, And I think that throws some people off, but I don't know. Maybe I need to work more on how discriminating I should be about what I target, right? It could be me. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. Of course, we're going to do body count, because that's just what we do. And where to go, though? I haven't been playing anything off of Manslaughter lately. Let's do this one. 99 Problems, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was White Zombie with Thunder Kiss 65. Alright. So as far as what kind of material we're going to be getting into today, did a little bit of scrounging around. But not having my Twitter feed, the one thing that I could really count on with the trusty Twitter feed was that I could look up Bitcoin in the search and find pretty much everything that was going on, like right now with it. But, things are what they are, and so we just gotta move forward. Anyway, like I said, as far as what we're gonna be getting into today, a couple of things on my rack here. And let's go with this one. First one off. This is kind of interesting to me only because China's always played this on-again, off-again relationship with Bitcoin. At least their government has. The Chinese people seem all about crypto, as far as being able to move money around and making money on arbitrage between both cryptocurrencies and other cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies. Everybody likes that game, right? Anyway, so I got this article here. It's on newsbtc.com. China's state outlet Xinhua exposes millions to Bitcoin. This is by Nick Chong, and this is authored 1 day ago, so yes, penis. China doesn't seem to want the Bitcoin and blockchain gravy train to slow down anytime soon. On Sunday afternoon PST, reports arose on Twitter that Chinese state media had begun to talk up the leading cryptocurrency via an article. While the price of Bitcoin hasn't reacted to this tidbit of news, this article could have a resounding effect on China's knowledge of crypto assets in the coming years. Chinese state media talks up Bitcoin. Monday's edition of Xinhua the official state-run publication of the People's Republic of China, contained an article whose title roughly translates, quote, Bitcoin, the first successful application of blockchain technology. While the piece wasn't all positive, the headline alone may push Chinese investors to take a close look at the cryptocurrency market once again, despite the restrictions put in place. I don't think the restrictions have had any real effect on hardcore people that were hardcore about cryptocurrency to begin with. Anyway, continuing on. The full-page article was shared by Matthew Graham of Global Capital. According to Graham's digital translator, the piece calls Bitcoin a non-tangible currency and a currency in quotation marks, whatever that implies. The Xinhua article also mentioned how blockchain technologies work, including the mining process halvings. There aren't any concrete statistics about the readership of Xinhua, but it largely ranges in the dozens of millions. Not the first time. This isn't the first time the Chinese media and large corporations / banks have lauded Bitcoin. Earlier this year, the Bank of China, decisively not to be confused with China's central bank, the similarly named People's Bank of China, was reported to have published an elaborate article about the many facets of Bitcoin. And let's see, Samson Mao says, yesterday the Bank of China posted up an article about Bitcoin. They explained how BTC works, why the price is going up, and why it's valuable. Never thought I'd see that happen. #bullish. Yeah, bullshit. According to a read and rough translation of the article by Blockstream's CSO Samson Mao, the institution, the 4 biggest state-owned commercial banks in China, mentioned how Bitcoin works, why the price of cryptocurrencies is rising, and why BTC inherently has value. That was far from the end of it. An infographic contained in the post portrayed key points in the history of the Bitcoin industry. It specifically made mention of the, quote, Bitcoin pizza guy story, Warren Buffett's scathing remarks about digital assets, the supply limit of BTC, and the price action seen over recent years. You notice on this article, sometimes they say BTC and sometimes they say Bitcoin. I'm wondering if they actually acknowledge those two as two separate things. Oh, and if that in itself is drawing a big question mark for you, just look it up, like Bitcoin and then BTC. And you might find that there are potentially 2 different definitions. I mean, there are those that consider Bitcoin after SegWit to be BTC and not Bitcoin. Anyway, continuing on. Considering that just a year ago it was verboten, with reports circulating that cryptocurrencies were somewhat taboo on certain forums. It's crazy to see how far the Chinese cryptocurrency space has come. Yeah, it is. Let me see if there's any comments on this one. Nope, no comments. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, China's had this on-again, off-again relationship, and I think what's really going on there is this, that you've got the people that are interested in cryptocurrency, and the mining of it, and the trading of it, and the making of the miners for it, and all that other business. You got those people that are interested in it. And they're participating in a wide variety of levels, some going so far as to building their own substations so that they can be drawing their electricity, quote-unquote, off the grid. So, this gives you an idea, and this is during the time when, I guess there was a period of time when Bitcoin mining was drawing some harsh criticism in China. But they had this, I don't know how often the report comes out, but they had this report of activities that they would like to see curbed, as far as like they regard them as excessive waste of electricity or something to that effect. And I think at one point Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining in general was on that list. However, from what I understand, the last list did not include cryptocurrency mining. And see, I think this is more an acknowledgement of the fact that regardless of what the government has said, regardless of what the banks have said about regulating cryptocurrency, about their participation in cryptocurrency, and what the legal status is of cryptocurrency, regardless of all that shit, people have been trading cryptocurrencies. There's been billions of dollars in capital flight via cryptocurrencies out of the Chinese market or the Chinese economy. And to me, this is like at least the beginnings of an open acknowledgement of that. And, you know, if China really is smart, or as smart as everybody says they are, my belief is that they will turn from embracing simply the idea of a state-backed and state-run cryptocurrency to just simply not mentioning it for a little while and just letting the market do what the market is going to do. You know, where it's a pain in the ass and they're drawing too much electricity or they're occupying too much bandwidth or something like that, you know, hammer down on them there. But for the most part, don't even mention it in the news. Don't talk about blockchain bullshit. Don't talk about how many different regulations you're going to impose on cryptocurrency. And what's going to end up happening is that silence is going to be filled by participants. People will be reminded, you know, there might be a little spike in the price of Bitcoin or something like that. And some of your citizens will be looking around their rooms and say, you know what, I've got some Bitcoin miners in here. I should probably turn those on because the difficulty is dropped low enough and the price is still high enough that I could conceivably mine at a profit. Fuck, I'm going to go for it. And the Chinese aren't going to be the only ones. And of course, that'll cause the price to go up and make money. But anyway, the point being that China has had this adversarial relationship with cryptocurrencies. And when you examine the position that they're taking on things, you know, how they phrase things in their articles and their announcements and whatnot, you start to see that you've heard these stories before. And not here in the United States. You've heard them in Greece. You've heard them in Turkey. You've heard of them in Zimbabwe. You've heard of them in Venezuela, Bolivia. And it's this relationship that governments have with cryptocurrencies that are mined and curated by the open public. And not just the public, including their people, but the public of the whole planet. And, you know, and they're looking at that and they're going, well, you know, we can't really compete with it. So we're going to have to be careful in our language. And we're just going to have to see how public sentiment plays out with regard to this thing. We might do some state-sponsored attacks on the network or maybe some state-sponsored attacks on some exchanges, American exchanges or exchanges abroad or whatever. But for the most part, we're just going to like kind of, you know, disengage and just let this thing play out. Because the fact of the matter is that when you see a government do that, where they're just like, you know what, this thing's going to happen, whatever, all of a sudden, all kinds of crypto activity starts happening there. And especially if they're accommodative, like, you know, they're getting good prices on electricity for the miners and shit like that, forget about it. There will be miners banging on your door saying, you guys got cheap electricity? We got some money that we'd like to trade for it. And we're off to the races. But, you know, it's this international nature of the market that is key. Because, you know, China's been experiencing some economic pressures from the United States. And I think the biggest pressure point, of course, is the fact that it's all denominated and transacted and conducted in U.S. dollars. Well, what if they were to be doing those transactions in Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin? What about that? All of a sudden, the barriers and the pressure points that the United States was able to put on them no longer exist. And I think this is part of the reality that's softening China's stance on things. Is, again, that their perspective has been evolving over time, and eventually they are going to get around to Venezuela. They're already talking about a state-backed cryptocurrency or token or something to that effect. But they're ostensibly doing it in response to Facebook's coin. And this is laughable because they were talking about doing something like this way before Facebook coin came about as an idea. And so, like I said, if you look at Venezuela, you just look at the policy shifts over time, and you will see what will happen everywhere. That the state-backed coin won't get adoption, at least not as big an adoption bump as, like, say, Dash or Digibyte or Verge or Monero. All of those saw higher adoption bumps in Venezuela than the Petro. I don't think that's going to change. I don't believe it's going to change regardless of the governing body in charge or in question. In China, least of all. Their people, I think, have been embracing cryptocurrencies in a big way. And to me, the evidence of it is the language and the perspectives that you hear from, like, President Xi and whatnot, where he's like, blockchain. That's like his only defense. It's like, it contains the idea of possibly Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, but the mention of blockchain as an isolated thing, it's worthless. I've been offended pretty much the entire time I've been hearing people put things in those terms. It's like, look, if you don't have public miners, you don't have a fucking blockchain. You got some form of distributed database. That's what you got. Anyway, moving on. Got this other thing here. And this one is kind of interesting because, this in my mind can be all described as expressions of institutional support. There's always been this question of, when are we going to see mass adoption by, industry, and how is that going to look and whatnot. And personally, I've never saw that as even really a goal. That if we would be adopted by any kind of industries, that it would just be because people wanted to use it, and it provided a better opportunity, or it provided better capabilities than their current mediums have, Sorry, I needed a sip of that. But anyway, this to me is something about, like, what it would look like. Mass adoption by industrialists. Anyway, this is on Coindesk.com. MAS JP Morgan build payment system with inter-blockchain connectivity. This is by Daniel Palmer. It was authored November 11th, 2019 at 9:40 UTC. Yes, penis. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, the city-state's central bank, has completed development of a blockchain-based cross-border payment system that can support a range of currencies. Carried out as part of the ongoing Project Ubin initiative, the prototype platform was developed in partnership with investment banking multinational JP Morgan and Singapore government-owned investment firm Temasek. My apologies. It's now being tested to see if it lives up to its promise as a means to cut costs for businesses and to gauge its ability to connect with different commercial blockchain applications, MAS said on Monday. The project has been some time in the works, with the second phase of the project announced back in 2017. Earlier tests had involved MAS and a group of major banks, with blockchain startup consortium R3 and professional services from firm Deloitte also involved. Originally focused on digitization of the Singapore dollar using blockchain, the project moved on to look at the tech's potential to support a real-time gross settlement system like those used by the central banks. With Ubin now in its fifth phase, MAS said the payments prototype will, quote, provide interfaces for other blockchain networks to connect and integrate with seamlessly. It's also been built to offer additional benefits such as delivery versus payment (DVP) settlement with private exchanges, conditional payments and escrow and payment commitments for trade finance. Quote, we hope this development will encourage other central banks to conduct similar trials, and we will make the technical specifications publicly accessible to accelerate these efforts, said Sapanendu Mahatni, Chief FinTech Officer at MAS. Quote, we look forward to linking up with more blockchain networks to improve cross-border connectivity. This will be a big step forward in making cross-border transactions faster, cheaper, and safer. With the code now developed, over 40 companies from within finance and elsewhere have been working to ascertain the commercial viability and overall value of the platform. JP Morgan indicated that work on its own blockchain initiative for internal business payments, which utilizes a dollar-pegged stablecoin, has informed work on the Ubin project. John Hunter, global head of clearing and interbank information network at JP Morgan, said, quote, by leveraging our learnings from building the interbank information network and the JPN coin, JP Morgan is well positioned to support the development of a blockchain-based payments network and operate at scale. Planned for early next year, professional services giant Accenture will publish a report on the project listing the potential use cases for a blockchain payments platform and setting out additional features that could be built into the system. The technical specs for the platform's connectivity interfaces will be made freely available under the Apache license version 2.0. Yeah, that's probably going to be bad. I don't have any confidence in any stablecoins. Honestly, I don't believe that any of them, including JP Morgan coin, are 100% backed. I think that they've got like commitments from other people to pay that they are counting as dollar assets or dollar denominated assets, and in some cases these aren't even dollars. They're talking about cryptocurrency at a set rate. And so, you know, I don't put any real stock in stable coins. I believe they are going to be like the AAA rated bond in the next financial crisis, that there's going to be a shit ton more of them in circulation than anybody has the capital to back, and due to some huge dip or hack or some inconsistency, it'll be exposed that they're basically walking around with their ass hanging out, that they're naked shorting cryptocurrencies, and that's why we're seeing a drop in price in cryptocurrencies in a time when we should be seeing a vast increase, especially considering the fact that the Fed is printing US dollars like crazy. You know, they're still playing with that overnight market, you know, $100 billion at a time. That shit's going to snowball. You know, I mean, they're putting out money way faster than they did during the TARP era, and I gotta wonder, you know, if it's going to accelerate any faster. And again, we should be seeing that translating into a relative price increase in cryptocurrencies, because there's only so many Bitcoin out there. There's only ever going to be so many Bitcoin. They're only issued at a set rate of speed. You know, they're not like U.S. dollars. The Fed isn't, you know, waving the magic wand and creating Bitcoin. And so I believe at some point or another, somebody is going to be shown to be naked from the waist down after we drain the pool here, and it's gonna lead to some serious fucktitude on the cryptocurrency markets. But what won't be able to be said about it is that the flaw or the fraud was attributable directly to cryptocurrencies, because it's going to be in a stable coin or something that isn't mined by the public. You know, they've tried multiple times to degrade the public confidence in cryptocurrencies. You know, with these market collapses and exchange hacks and all that other shit. But the overall reality behind all of them has been that none of them were committed. None of the hacks that have happened succeeded because there was a failure in the cryptocurrency itself. You know, it was usually something in the security of the network, the exchanges networks, and specifically their developers' personal information. And oddly enough, it seems like that kind of stuff stopped after I opened the possibility, at least on this show, that Microsoft was doing it. I mean, that's something we don't really want to think about. You know, they own GitHub, though. So, I mean, who has access to that information? Microsoft does. But there was like this spate of attacks. And like the only ways you could get that information would be like, you know, you SIM swapped a developer, you know, you stole his cell phone or got access to it, or you're Microsoft and GitHub is hosted on your servers and you have ultimate access to all that information on there. So, I mean, really, what's more likely here? You know, little Occam's razor there. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it back down into some music. And where to go? We played a little bit. Let's go with some Tool, a little Vicarious, here on Coin Metal. And that was Suicidal Tendencies, If I Don't Wake Up. I don't know what'll happen then, but hopefully we have actually woken up and we are actually here. Anyway, so this next thing I got here, it's on mas.gov.sg. Yeah, SG. News Media Releases. And this is published on November 11th, 2019, so today. MAS helps develop blockchain-based prototype for multi-currency payments. Singapore 11th, 2019, November. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, has led the successful development of a blockchain-based prototype that enables payments to be carried out in different currencies on the same network. This prototype network, developed by MAS in collaboration with JP Morgan and Temasek, has the potential to improve cost efficiencies for businesses. It is currently undergoing industry testing to determine its ability to integrate with commercial blockchain applications. The applications that were tested successfully will be showcased at the Singapore FinTech Festival and Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology SFFX, which in 2019. Number 3. This development marks the latest milestone for Project Ubin, which is into its fifth phase. Building on the work of Phase 4 of Project Ubin, the payments network will provide interfaces for other blockchain networks to connect and integrate seamlessly. It will also offer additional features to support use cases such as delivery versus payment (DVP) settlement with private exchanges, conditional payments, and escrow for trade, as well as payment commitments for trade finance. Number 4. Beyond technical experimentation, the fifth phase of Project Ubin sought to determine the commercial viability and value of the blockchain-based payments network. To date, MAS and its partners have engaged more than 40 financial and non-financial firms to explore the potential benefits of the network. Number 5. John Hunter, Global Head of Clearing and Interbank Information Network, IIN, JP Morgan, said, quote, JP Morgan is excited to be an infrastructure partner of MAS and Temasek for Phase 5 of Project Ubin. By leveraging our key learnings from building the Interbank Information Network, IIN, and the JPM coin, JP Morgan is well positioned to support the development of a blockchain-based payments network and operate at scale. Number 6. Chia Song Hui, President and Chief Operating Officer, Temasek, said, quote, blockchain technology has great potential in transforming businesses and opening up new business opportunities. To better understand the impact and value of blockchain technology, we are pleased to have partnered with MAS and JP Morgan for the Ubin platform. The inclusion of non-financial services companies has demonstrated applicability of blockchain technology beyond capital markets and trade finance. We look forward to deeper collaboration and support for Singapore's pioneering efforts in the blockchain space. Number 7. Accenture has been commissioned to publish the the project report in early 2020. The report will describe the blockchain use cases that would benefit from a blockchain-based payments network and set out additional features that the network could provide. In addition, the technical specifications for the connectivity interfaces that were developed will also be released for public access under Apache License version 2.0 rather. 8. Sopnendu Mahatni, Chief FinTech Officer MAS, said, quote, there is growing evidence now that blockchain-based payment networks are able to enhance cost efficiencies and create new opportunities for businesses. We hope this development will encourage other central banks to conduct similar trials, and we will make the technical specifications publicly accessible to accelerate these efforts. We look forward to linking up with more blockchain networks to improve cross-border connectivity. This will be a big step forward in making cross-border transactions faster, cheaper, and safer, like Bitcoin did back in 2009. About Project Ubin. Project Ubin is a collaborative project with the industry to explore the use of blockchain and distributed ledger technology for clearing and settlement of payments and securities. The project aims to help MAS and the industry better understand the technology and the potential benefits it may bring through practical experimentation. This is with the eventual goal of developing simpler to use and more efficient alternatives to today's systems based on central bank issued digital tokens. Phase 1. MAS partnered R3 and a consortium of financial institutions on a proof-of-concept project to conduct interbank payments using blockchain technology and published a report that covers the aspects of DLT that are most suited to settlement systems and the details and design principles used for the prototype. Phase 2. MAS and the Association of Banks in Singapore, ABS, led the successful development of software prototypes of 3 different models for decentralized interbank payment and settlements with liquidity savings mechanisms. MAS and ABS released a report describing the prototypes developed and the findings and observations from the project. The source codes and technical documentations were also released for public access under Apache License version 2.0. Phase 3. Delivery versus Payment. MAS and Singapore Exchange SGX collaborated to develop delivery versus payment capabilities for settlement of tokenized assets across different blockchain platforms and jointly published an industry report which provides a comprehensive view of automating DVP settlement processes with smart contracts. The report also identified key technology and operational considerations to ensure resilient operations and defined a market framework that governs post-trade settlement processes such as arbitration. Phase 4. Cross-border payment versus payment. What? PVP? Payment versus payment? What the fuck is that? Anyway, continuing. The Bank of Canada, BOC, Bank of England, BOE, and MAS jointly published a report which assesses alternative models that could enhance cross-border payments and settlements. The report examines existing challenges and considers alternative models that could, in time, result in improvements in speed, cost, and transparency for users. MAS and BOC subsequently linked up their respective experimental domestic payments networks, namely Project Euban and Project Jasper, and conducted a successful experiment on cross-border and cross-currency payments using central bank digital currencies. MAS and BOC jointly published a report which proposes different design options for cross-border settlement systems. Yeah, so, oh wow, that's really funny. I'm just looking at the additional related news on here, and the next article is, quote, combating financial crime through new technologies built on strong fundamentals. Give me a fucking break. You fucking people, the banks are the biggest committers of any financial crime there is. But they're going to investigate themselves, and we're supposed to trust them because they're using blockchain. You know, one of the first projects that I'd heard about Accenture being involved in was a quote-unquote editable blockchain. And they'd supposedly managed that by 2015. So you can only imagine what that's morphed into by now. I mean, for all we know, we're running some BIP that makes Bitcoin work with it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I got this report from Monetary Authority of Singapore, and I guess this is done jointly with Deloitte because their name is big and in the left there here. Here we go. The future is here. Project Euban, SGD on distributed ledger, whatever the fuck that means. A report developed with the contributions of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, BCS Information Systems, Credit Suisse, DBS Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan, Mitsubishi, UFG Financial Group, OCBC Bank, R3, Singapore Exchange, and UOB Bank. Acknowledgements. Deloitte and the Monetary Authority of Singapore would like to thank the following organizations who have contributed to the research of this publication. Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, BCS Information Systems, Credit Suisse, DBS Bank Ltd, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited, JP Morgan, Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group, UCBC Bank, R3 Singapore Exchange, United Overseas Bank. There we go. Continuing on. Forward. Let me get a sip of this caffeine before we get too deep into this. The elixir of life, coffee. Anywho, here we go. Forward. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, is pleased to present the report, quote, Project Ubin, SGD on Distributed Ledger. This report will serve as an introduction to distributed ledger technology and provide an understanding of the prototype developed in Project Ubin for interbank payments using DLT, BLT, bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Project Ubin demonstrated the commitment of MAS and the industry to co-create concrete use cases for technologies such as DLT. We believe that central banks like MAS can play a bigger role beyond just providing research funding. Collaborative projects such as Project Ubin support the creation of open intellectual property and foster collaboration between industry players, creating a vibrant, collaborative, and innovative ecosystem of financial institutions and fintech companies. Some Project Ubin participants have since embarked on projects that are inspired by this collaboration. We hope that the report will further encourage other financial institutions to explore and experiment with the use of DLT, and the report lists potential use cases which will serve as a useful starting point. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the contributions of Project Ubin participants in developing the working prototype on DLT for interbank payments and contributing to the project's report, and the team from Deloitte in the production of this report. We hope that you would gain a better understanding of DLT from the report and will be inspired to explore and further evaluate the use of DLT within your institution. And that was Sopnendu Mahatni and Nam Sin. My apologies there. Scrolling, big images. Thank you. That sucks up a lot of pages. Executive summary. DLT is at the center of a massive push for innovation across the financial services industry. While DLT is by no means a one-size-fits-all solution, it has the potential to drastically alter the way we do business and interact with one another. The technology is also known as the Internet of Value, whatever the fuck that is, as it increases the efficiency, security, and transparency of transactional activities. Deloitte has been an active player in this emerging ecosystem, conducting research, exploring use cases, designing prototypes to test hypotheses, and partnering with technology platform vendors to collaborate on pilots. It has created numerous use cases across themes such as cross-border payments, smart identity, trade finance, and loyalty, with over 800 practitioners across its global network involved in these efforts, staying constantly up to date on the latest developments while demonstrating the art of possible to the broader industry. A group of banks in Singapore, with the support of MAS, Singapore's central bank and financial regulatory authority, have also been developing a payment system prototype using DLT, which bank users can exchange currency with one another without lengthy processing times, expensive processing fees, or intermediaries. R3, a consortium specializing in DLT, has partnered with the group on the initiative known as Project Ubin. This project represents a significant opportunity for Singapore's ecosystem to establish leadership in the area of DLT research and development, in line with Singapore's broader goal of becoming a smart financial center. Yeah, that's just planet Earth now. Sorry. In this white paper, we provide a brief overview of DLT, along with how Deloitte is pioneering innovation in the market, while outlining Project Cuban, which places a tokenized form of the Singapore dollar, SGD, on a DLT, distributed ledger technology. What the fuck is... These fucking people, man. I can't even imagine what the hell they're saying. It's very difficult. Somebody alerted me on Verge Currency. Oh yeah. There we go. That's WinButt. In this white paper, we provide a brief overview of DLT along with how Deloitte is pioneering innovation in the market, while outlining Project Cuban, which places a tokenized form of the Singapore dollar. Yeah, we got all that. Broad set of transformative applications. Yes. Distributed ledger technology. Over the past year, there has been much buzz in the marketplace about DLT. Only among industry assholes that don't understand this shit. The 2016 report entitled, quote, The Future of Financial Infrastructure, produced by the World Economic Forum in collaboration with Deloitte, predicted that 80% of banks will initiate DLT projects in 2017. Due to the significant cost, risk, and friction of current financial services infrastructure, organizations in search of a more viable alternative have found hope in DLT to potentially disrupt the way we conduct transactions and contracts. Yeah, in 2009 we proved you people are wholly fucking useless and that we can replace you with a program on our desktop. That's what we found out. Continuing on. Based on Deloitte's research, the following three innovations helped lay the groundwork for the innovation of DLT. Number 1. Peer-to-peer networks. In a peer-to-peer model, every peer in the network is a server and a client, both supplying and consuming resources. This may facilitate, for example, the creation of a currency without a privileged third party, amongst other types of decentralized financial interactions. Yeah, in other words, mining. Number 2, public key cryptography. Public key cryptography is a method for verifying digital identity with a high degree of confidence enabled by the use of private and public keys. Cryptography enables the individual identification and exchange of Bitcoin among users. Number 3, consensus. Consensus algorithms that ensure agreement between parties on a network can help validate the data's authenticity as well as transactions and control when it can be written into the system. This capability prevents double spending by ensuring chronological recording of data. Actually, there are a couple flaws in this. Number 1, they only mention Bitcoin once, despite the fact that all three of these concepts are born of what? Oh yeah, Bitcoin. And as far as the double spending thing with chronological recording of data, yeah, they're supposed to record them in an as received state, but they don't. Anyway, continuing on. 2.1, what is DLT? DLT is a type of database that is spread across multiple sites, countries, or institutions. Yeah, a distributed database. That's what it is. It is decentralized in nature, not really, eliminating the need for an intermediary to process, validate, or authenticate transactions. Jesus Christ. Each party, ergo individual, organization, or group is represented by their computer, called a node on the network. Each node keeps its own copy of all transactions on the network, and nodes work directly with one another to check a new transaction's validity through a process called mining. They call it consensus on here. Each of these transactions is encrypted and sent to every node on the network to be verified and grouped into time-stamped blocks of transactions. Blockchain is one such type of distributed ledger that has gained notoriety as core technology behind Bitcoin. Yeah, that's all a bunch of bullshit. Bunch of fucking bullshit. They made up a bullshit term for Bitcoin's blockchain, i.e. DLT, and they're trying to map it like, oh, DLT is what it is, and oh yeah, Bitcoin is kind of like a DLT, but DLT is the thing because we do DLT and not Bitcoin. Yeah, fucking bunch of fucking idiots. Continuing. For example, let's say that John initiates a transaction to pay Sally through a DLT-based solution. A copy of that transaction is sent to all the other nodes on the network, and each of these nodes would then verify that its copy of the ledger is the same as the others to ensure that the transaction is valid. Each transaction has a unique signature called a hash that SegWit guts out of Bitcoin transactions that includes a reference to the previous transaction as well as a digital signature from the node initiating the transaction. You realize what's going on here? The whole fucking world is being bait and switched. You know, somebody brought it up, and you can look this up for yourself if you're so driven. Somebody brought up that SegWit fundamentally alters Bitcoin in that when you read the Bitcoin white paper, it talks all about the signature and the hash. We call that the witness data, okay? Or the witness data does also contain a signature of you. You know, so like when you're transacting coins from you to somebody else, you sign the transaction. SegWit guts that signature out. So it basically makes it not Bitcoin. Yeah. Anyway, continuing on. But you know, like I said, you know, and so they're reselling Bitcoin as it was originally before SegWit back to you as DLT. And here's the little flaw in their whole reasoning here, is that we have the code for Bitcoin. We can run versions of Bitcoin that don't have SegWit. Yeah, think about that one a little while. Continuing on, because I didn't have anything else planned, and this is basically just candy coating bullshit. I may jump ship no matter what, because I'm not for the spreading of disinformation. And so far that's what I'm reading here is disinformation. It's a bunch of repackaged bullshit. Copy of that transaction is sent to all the other nodes on the network, blah, blah, blah. Each transaction has a unique signature called a hash that includes a reference to the previous transaction as well as a digital signature from the node initiating the transaction. This hash gives the nodes on the network common signature with which to validate the transaction. Nodes on the network called miners compete to solve complex algorithms to write batches of valid transactions, such as John and Sally's $20 exchange, to a block. This block is a timestamped group of transactions that is chained to previous blocks, forming an immutable or tamper-resistant blockchain of historical transaction data. Actually, just immutable, not tamper-resistant, tamper-proof. DLT has several unique and valuable characteristics that over time could transform a wide range of industries. And by the way, this is why their DLT is not a quote-unquote blockchain. Okay, because for one thing, if they're running it all on their own, they do cover the mechanics here of a block reward and all that shit, but actually they don't talk about the block reward. What am I talking about? But they talk about the blocks and they talk about mining. What they don't talk about is the fact that all of the nodes, if they're owned by a singular entity, could alter the quote-unquote immutable blockchain at will. It's saved on your fucking hard drive, and you can call up a text file and edit it at will, and then save it back to your hard drive. Like I said before, Accenture, which is an entity that's involved in this whole bullshit, They mastered a editable blockchain back in 2015. Of course, it did assume, I believe from what I remember of it, it did assume that all of the nodes on the network would be owned by the individuals and, like one entity or a grouping of like collaborative entities. So like a bank or a grouping of banks. And this is all entirely doable with the hardware that banks already have deployed right now. They could easily repurpose every single one of their ATMs into Bitcoin miners or cryptocurrency miners and be mining their own coin without any block reward. But see, what they neglect to mention here also is the fact that in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency networks, that's what the block reward is for. It's to ensure that you are actually recording the data as it's coming and that you are maintaining the validity of the blockchain's information. You're incentivized to do so by the block reward. On a quote-unquote DLT, so far I'm not seeing any report of a block reward involved. So the entities are doing it out of what benefit? I guess maybe the only benefit they really have is that they're the exclusive stewards of the data and that they can edit it at will. And that is the difference between this distributed ledger technology and Bitcoin and what Bitcoin provides. It's one thing I don't like about this space is omissions. There's people in the Bitcoin camp that make all kinds of omissions because they want to sucker you into using their third-party service, and so that they get to be your payment services provider instead of the R3 or one of the other entities that are involved in this MAS project. Anyway, continuing on. DLT has several unique and valuable characteristics that over time could transform a wide range of industries. See Figure 2. Characteristics of DLT. Distributed ledger, peer-to-peer distributed network, records a public history of transactions. DLT is distributed and highly available. DLT retains a secure source of proof that the transaction occurred. And whatever. Irreversibility. DLT contains a certain and verifiable record of every single transaction ever made. This mitigates the risk of double spending, fraud, abuse, and manipulation of transactions. That is complete, utter bullshit. DLT doesn't contain certain and verifiable record of jack shit. Bitcoin's blockchain does. It's bad enough that, like I was saying, Bitcoin Maximalists do that shit about Lightning. And they talk about it like, the transaction fees aren't going to continue to rise, and that you're always going to be able to pay to establish your own payment channels on your node, and you're never going to have to rely on a third party to do that for you. Well, let me tell you something. These monkeys are planning to be that third party that's doing it for you. They're calling it DLT. They plan to phase out Bitcoin as a title on the network and what the network does. It's kind of obvious to me, at least. At one point or another, they are going to be targeting large mining operations because they'll be the ones worth attacking. They'll have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of miners on one site, so taking them out will take out a significant chunk of the network. But I think this liability will cause more mining to be done by smaller individual groups. And this is going to help the network over time because it will distribute it over a broader surface. It's not just going to be all concentrated in China. Anyway, continuing on. Censorship resistant. The crypto economics built into DLT model provide incentives for the participants to continue validating blocks, reducing the possibility of external influencers to modify previously recorded transaction records. Yeah, basically they're describing Bitcoin. What are the benefits of Bitcoin? I'm just going to replace DLT with Bitcoin just to eliminate the confusion here. I hate lies, and I'm not going to be spitting them out of my mouth. What are the benefits of Bitcoin? There are many intrinsic benefits of Bitcoin which make it a disruptive force across many industries. First and foremost, it allows for the disintermediation of processes that once required centralized third parties, like banks. For example, since nodes work directly with one another, when John transferred Sally $20, their transaction did not go through a third party such as a bank. It went directly from John to Sally and was validated by all of the nodes on the network, instead of a centralized bank like us. Disintermediation also minimizes the time it takes to clear transactions and costs associated with transferring assets. Removing third parties can make networks less susceptible to certain types of cyber attacks, as there is no central point of failure to be targeted. Additionally, the loss of one node does not pose a threat to the larger network. Transactions stored on Bitcoin's blockchain use digital signatures which make them tamper-resistant, actually tamper-proof. This can help prevent some types of fraud, actually most, and can help serve to ensure the integrity of the data. Although Bitcoin's blockchain can create immediate value for two participants, there is a network effect, and larger networks with more participants create more efficiency. The value of the network depends on the number of nodes participating. The greater the number of people using it, the more valuable the network becomes. Bitcoin also enables smart contracts, Bitcoin's blockchain, I would say, enables smart contracts, which are virtual agreements encoded on the network that are automatically executed based on logical conditions. Referring to our example again, let's now imagine that John issued a smart contract with instructions to send Sally $20 if the stock for company X reaches $1.20 earnings per share. The oracle, a trusted data feed to a smart contract, which may be needed when data is not intrinsically available on the ledger, validates the logical conditions of a smart contract. It watches the earnings per share value, and it triggers the smart contract when the earnings per share of company X hit $1.20. As soon as the condition is met, it will automatically trigger a $20 transaction to Sally. This offers an extremely powerful benefit to many different industries by enabling the automation of complex business processes, often with multiple untrusting parties, with the use of logical conditions and rules. Yeah. So, benefits of DLT, number one, disintermediate. In a peer-to-peer model, every peer in the network is a server and a client, thus eliminating the middlemen in processes between users, enables the facilitation of transactions without a central privileged third party, even in the absence of trust. Number two, secured by cryptography. Actually, the cryptography is only one aspect, but continuing. Public key cryptography is a method for verifying digital identity with a high degree of confidence, enabled by the use of private and public keys, allows for increased security and protection of data and identity in the system. Smart contracts and oracles. Smart contracts are virtual agreements encoded on the Bitcoin blockchain that can be automatically reconciled based on logical conditions. Enables the secure automation of complex logical agreements and the business processes using data gathered by oracles. Yeah. Number four, immutable, only if all of the nodes are owned by individual parties and not just one party. Data on the DLT is immutable and is thus resistant to double spending, fraud, censorship, and hacking efforts. Creates a more secure, transparent network and creates new avenues for regulators. No, actually, it eliminates a lot of them. Actually, it eliminates the need for regulators entirely, because and I'm not going to go into that anyway. DLT allows for near real-time settlement of transactions, removing friction and reducing risk. Actually, Bitcoin, yeah. Bitcoin enables transactions to be made in near real time between users on the network. Damn Skippy. 6. Trustless. Bitcoin is based on cryptographic proof, allowing any two parties to transact directly with each other without a trusted third party. Yep. You know, these guys are like parroting me. It's like they're listening to the show and then just copying the shit down into a PDF and then reselling it. Too bad I'm giving it away for free, right? 2.3, when is Bitcoin the answer? As with every new technology, experiments are needed to determine the feasibility of the solution in solving a set of problems. Bitcoin is not the answer to all problems. There are a handful of requirements that, when met, in part or in full, should indicate whether Bitcoin will sufficiently address the client's needs, such as shared data, architecture or infrastructure, absence of trust, and the opportunity for disintermediation. Conversely, there are several factors that, when present, may indicate that technologies other than Bitcoin would be needed to meet the client's needs, ergo technical reliability, system operators, and users. As the degree of trust in a system, participants, and confidence in system infrastructure rises, non-Bitcoin based technologies should also be considered in parallel. To evaluate the appropriate Bitcoin use cases, a number of key value drivers have been identified. Figure 4, key value drivers for the identification of appropriate Bitcoin use cases. Operational simplification. Actually, you know what? I'm going to open it up just a little bit more. Cryptocurrencies instead of DLT. Cryptocurrencies eliminates manual efforts required to perform reconciliation and resolve disputes. Regulatory efficiency improvement. Cryptocurrencies enable real-time monitoring of financial activity between regulators and regulated entities. Counterparty risk reduction. Cryptocurrencies challenges the need to trust counterparties to fulfill obligations as agreements are codified and executed in a shared immutable environment. Clearing and settlement time reduction. Cryptocurrencies disintermediates third parties that support transaction verification/validation and accelerates settlement. Liquidity and capital improvement. Cryptocurrencies reduces locked-in capital and provides transparency into sourcing liquidity for assets. Fraud minimization. Cryptocurrencies enables asset provenance and full transaction history to be established within a single source of truth. 2.3. DLT use cases, or cryptocurrency use cases rather. A few initial cryptocurrency use cases have been identified based on their potential use for disruption and innovation to processes that are otherwise time-consuming, expensive, and prone to fraudulent activities. Cryptocurrency use cases, trade finance. Cryptocurrency eases the existing pain points of buyers, sellers, and financial institutions while opening the ecosystem to non-traditional players. Cross-border payments. Cryptocurrencies can transfer payment across currencies almost instantly for a fraction of today's cost and provide access to the unbanked in remote areas. Digital identity. Cryptocurrencies can create an auditable source of information shared and verified across a network of organizations, ergo KYC compliance, or non-compliance as the case may be. Clearing and settlement. Cryptocurrencies shows promise to drive efficiency in the clearing and settlement processes of digital assets through the use of colored coins. Gosh, that's Bitcoin circa 2010. Provenance. Blockchain offers an immutable and irreversible source of information that can track the true ownership of a product across the supply chain. That's going to be terrible for gold, guys. Multi-party aggregation. Blockchain can be used as a shared master data repository for common industry information, allowing members to query the data. Record keeping. Cryptocurrencies provide a method for collecting and collectively recording and notarizing any type of data whose meaning can be financial or otherwise. Reinsurance. Contractual terms and obligations can be programmed directly into the cryptocurrency, maximizing adherence, ergo final contract, signatures, claims, and premiums processing. SGD on ledger. We have introduced the concept of an SGD on ledger to distinguish it from existing forms of digital central bank money, such as the deposits that banks hold at the MAS, which are used to make payments via MEPS. To use a physical analogy, SGD on ledger is a specific use coupon that is issued on a one-to-one basis in exchange for money. The coupons have a specific usage domain, in our case, for the settlement of interbank debts, but no value outside of this. One is able to cash out by exchanging the coupons back into money later. One may think of the coupon booklets as One may think of these as the coupon booklets at fun fairs. Visitors can purchase them to be spent on games and food within the fairgrounds only, but you end up throwing most of them away. SGD on ledger has 3 useful properties that make it suited to our prototype. First, unlike money in bank accounts, we do not receive interest on ledger holdings. The absence of interest calculations reduces the complexity of managing the payment system. Second, to ensure full redeemability of the SGD on ledger for money, each token is fully backed by an equivalent amount of SGD held in custody. This means that the overall money supply is unaffected by the issuance of the on-ledger equivalents, since there is no net increase in dollar claims on the central bank. Third, SGD on ledger are limited use instruments and can be designed with additional features to support the use case, such as security features against misuse. Yeah, whatever. It's going to be open source to some extent, so I would expect that the exploits will be just as widely distributed as the software is. 3.1 Objectives and Scope. 3.1.1 Context. On November 16, 2016, MAS announced that it was partnering with R3, a blockchain-inspired technology company and consortium of the world's largest financial institutions, on the production of a proof of concept to conduct interbank payments facilitated by Bitcoin. This endeavor, known as Project Ubin, is a digital cash on ledger project run in partnership between MAS and R3, with the participation of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Credit Suisse, DBS Bank, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited, JP Morgan, Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group, OCBC Bank, Singapore Exchange, United Overseas Bank, as well as BCS Information Systems as a technology provider. The aim of Project Euban is to evaluate the implications of having a tokenized form of the SGD on a DL and its potential benefits to Singapore's financial ecosystem. MAS is Singapore's central bank and financial regulatory authority. MAS acts as a settlement agent, operator, and overseer of payment, clearing, and settlement systems in Singapore that focus on safety and efficiency. As part of its role, it operates an electronic payments and book entry system. The new MAS electronic payment system, MEPS, or MEPS Plus, is a real-time gross settlement system that supports large-value local currency interbank funds transfers and the settlement of scriptless Singapore government securities, SGSs, between MEPS Plus participants subject to the availability of funds and securities. MAS undertakes this role as a trusted third party and actively engages banks in the Singapore market, as well as with public and private sector bodies such as the Singapore Clearinghouse Association, SCHA, and the Association of Banks in Singapore, ABS. MEPS Plus is a system that enables real-time and irrevocable transfer of funds and SGS. Key features include use of Swift message formats to increase interoperability, parameterized QE management, which provides participants with better liquidity and settlement management, automated collateralized intraday liquidity facilities that enables participants, particularly banks with low liquidity, to settle more payments quicker, automated gridlock resolution, which detects and resolves multi-party payment gridlocks to prevent or reduce payment QUs, and to increase overall efficiency of payments flow. Any participating banks are contractually bound to operate in compliance with the MEPS Plus operating rules and regulations. This presented an excellent opportunity for MAS to collaborate with the banks and assess the value that blockchain could bring to this existing relationship. Project Euban is a multi-phase project. Phase 1, which ran for 6 weeks from November 14th, 2016 to December 23rd of 2016, served as the foundation to assess the feasibility and implications of DLT, or Bitcoin, and to identify the elements required for future enhancements, such as kicking all of the miners off of the network. 3.1.2 Background. Project Euban was conceived as an opportunity for Singapore to take a leading role in the research on central bank currency on a DLT and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. A similar project, Project Jasper, was carried out in Canada between March and June 2016 in partnerships between R3, the Bank of Canada, Payments Canada, and 5 R3 member banks, and in the Canadian market, Bank of Montreal, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Royal Bank of Canada, Scotiabank, and TD Canada Trust. Project Jasper's goals were to, quote, build a proposal for a model for Bank of Canada issued digital currency, including issuance, transfer, settlement, and destruction. Leverage rapid prototyping to test and validate business, operational, and technical hypotheses, modeling the on-ramp, off-ramp access points to the central bank ledger, and collaborate, and publish a report on findings and the broader implications of central bank issued digital currencies. Project Ubin leverages the significant experience of R3 and its members in the Canadian market. Specifically, the architecture, code, and lessons learned from Project Jasper were considered and applied to the Singapore context for Project Ubin. 3.1.3 Scope. For current operations, while MEPS Plus supports SGD-denominated domestic transactions, cross-border transactions interact with international systems and face additional risks and inefficiencies such as the following outlined in Figure 6. Figure 6. Additional risks and inefficiencies from cross-border transactions. Replacement risk. Counterparty cancels or delivers late. Settlement risk. Counterparty defaults. Inefficient funding costs. Parties on both sides of a transaction tend to pre-fund accounts early and excessively on worst-case provisional basis. Reconciliation costs. Multi-way reconciliation required across payments and securities to understand real-time stock position. R3 and MAS believe that DLT offers the potential to, quote, improve domestic securities transactions, offering delivery versus payment settlement in cases where it is not already available. Significantly improve cross-border payments, payment versus payment and securities transactions, DVP. In order to achieve the hypothesized benefits, widespread adoption of Bitcoin would be needed. The industry requires answers to the perceived technical challenges of getting interoperability between platforms, selective identification of relevant parties, appropriate levels of privacy, proven ability to scale, and various systems upgrades over time. If these challenges can be solved as part of this project in the near future, MAS can create atomic transactions for the first time for cross-border fixed income products with payments directly on central bank money. This would enable true DVP, where security and corresponding payment switches ownership simultaneously and at the deepest technical level. This could remove the occurrence of late payments and payment failures. Certainly around delivery and near real-time same-day delivery also becomes available. These could make both domestic as well as cross-border transactions more attractive from both a technology and end-user experience standpoint. Furthermore, the reduction in counterparty risk may drive a reduction in collateral requirements in some circumstances. Project Ubin was thus designed to research and validate the hypothesis and drive the potential benefits towards reality through evaluations across business, technology, and economic factors. And we're going to get into a real short music break before we close this one out, but we're on page 14 of this report, so if you want to check it out, it's on mas.gov.sg. And as far as my belief in the likelihood of the success of this thing, not really all that high. I mean, you might as well put the Petro in the case of the SGS and all that other bullshit. There's a trusted entity involved here, or there are a body of trusted entities, all of which have an interest in distorting the information that they issue to the public. I mean, if you make decisions based on the information they provide, and they happen to profit from those decisions more than you do, that's in their best interest, right? Well, why wouldn't they alter the records specifically to their benefit? Why wouldn't they? I know I would. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where to go, I think a little bit of Aces High here by Iron Maiden is appropriate. Here we go, here on Coin Metal. And that was Slayer with Dissident Aggressor. It was originally a Judas Priest song. Anyway, it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. You know, it seems that they're basically behind the wheels or behind the scenes trying to, it seems to me at least, AstroTurf an entire industry. And we didn't get to it, but I had an article here where, you know, one of these big banks or whatever is putting out a blockchain job request. You know, they're looking for people that they can fit this role, right? Well, to me, what it looks like is that, you know, they've created all of this alternative vocabulary where they could be doing everything that Bitcoin is doing. They could even be using Bitcoin to do what they're doing, and it would be functionally identical to what they're describing. And that, you know, in the longer term, that they intend for Bitcoin to either be phased out or for them to have completely supplanted and taken over the network by one means or another. Where I see this as a conceptual failure is that part of the reason that people even come to cryptocurrencies is the track record of the entities that are involved in legacy finance, basically. And so the fact that these people are editing their own blockchain that in the wild and mined by you is immutable, and they've proved that their records are not in fact immutable, that their blockchain is in fact edited all the fucking time, they will immediately lose all faith that people had placed in them. And I believe also that this market has had enough experience as a completely autonomous industry, separated entirely from legacy finance, that the likelihood of it going and being kept under the yoke of industrial finance, and it's simply fallacy. And it is with that I'd like to close out again. We'll be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. As far as our last dance is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and throw down a little bit of Skindred here. And if I can find the right song, where is it? Here it is, Machine, Last Dance, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Good night.